Welcome everyone to the Nerd Nook. I'm your host, Evan Teague. With me, like always, is Noah Bailey. So, the time we've all been waiting for, James Gunn finally revealed the big slew of Chapter 1 of his DC universe. So, let's jump right into that stuff. So, we're going to start with probably the thing that's probably going to be the best thing that's going to come out of this, but also the thing we've been waiting for, like with most anticipation. He confirmed that The Batman Part 2 is the official name. The Batman Part 2 is coming October 2025.
Woo!
So that's over 2 years away, but I mean, it's pretty standard for sequels to be 3 years apart, so it's whatever. But
It's fair.
and there's probably going to be some kind of Batman related content either on HBO or whatever else, like in between. I know there's that Penguin show, there's that Arkham show. There's going to be other stuff throughout. They'll be busy. Um, but yeah, do you have? Let me put it this way. I personally feel like The Batman Part 2 is a solid name. I I feel like that could change. Does it? It kind of feels like a placeholder right now. Do you
Oh,
kind of feel that way?
definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like anytime something is just two or part two or the second one, like any like generic name, I think that's their like their placeholder name, and then
Mm,
if they can't come up with anything better, they just keep it.
right. Like weirdly enough, I feel like if it was just the Batman 2, it would feel better to me. But Part 2, that kind of, I don't know. To me, if something is like a Part 2, it feels like, to me, that means it's going to be happening right after.
Hmm.
And I would prefer if this movie was taking place, 3 years after,
Right.
or
No,
at least
I
sometime
agree.
after. But
Right, because part two implies it's a direct continuation in terms of like we pick up right where this left off, not necessarily like like you said, a couple years later. So I think it's kind of a place filler name
mm,
until they decide to throw something else on there. Maybe it's
right.
like name based on a comic book. Maybe it's just some clever wordplay that hasn't been used yet with Batman.
Mm,
Maybe they just keep it part two. Who
yeah.
knows? But
Although I do kind of retract that because The Last of Us Part 2 took place like 7 years after the original story, and, and that's just
yeah,
a
but
sequel. But even then, I don't love the title for that game either. I just feel like, not that it's a cop out, but just I think to me Part 2 just sounds a little too pretentious. It's like, why isn't it just 2? Why is it Part 2? you
I
know?
mean, yeah, but I mean, at the same time, it's I guess it's just I don't know. Whenever I think of part two, or I think Back to the Future, that's the first
Mm,
thing I think of. And like, granted, that's like one after the other, but it's
yeah.
still like there's still it still feels like it's separate enough.
Yeah.
Like there are certain things, but at the same time, it's like I don't think it's. I think it's more so just if you're gonna make a sequel, it feels a little on the nose and it feels a little corny, so to speak.
Mm.
But then again, when it's something as popular as Batman, who cares?
Yeah, like it
Essentially,
doesn't need to have a fancy subtitle. It shouldn't,
right?
like, it's more of the Batman. Like, that's all we want.
I mean, I mean, if you think of a lot of the Batman titles, most of them are just Batman doing something.
Yeah.
Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman Begins. Like it's kind of
Dark
just
Knight
Batman doing his
Rises. Yeah.
exactly. It's kind of like it's kind of just doing whatever. It's kind
Mm.
of just
Just,
so it's like they know it's a popular enough IP that you don't need to get super clever with it. Like
yeah.
have you noticed like it's Shazam, Fury of the Gods, not just Shazam Returns. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because Shazam's doesn't have the same eye popping appeal as just Batman,
Mm.
Superman, Spider Man. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. But, but yeah, that's obviously very exciting. I'm so glad they finally nailed down a release date for that. Please don't change. I think, as
I
much
mean,
as the Batman was, fantastic, would have loved to watch it earlier, and I feel that movie would have been great in October, like the movie was actually set. But
for sure.
but October 2025,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, no matter when it comes out, it's not really gonna be a bad time per se.
Right. Especially since like I was never afraid that it wouldn't come out. Like it made good money at the box office. It wasn't like a smash success as some people thought it would be, but it was for a first entry for a Batman, in a new franchise. 750-ish million is a very good haul. But and it was obviously very well received. And but because it wasn't greenlit immediately, it was like 3 months. It was like 6 months after it came out. Was like, did it finally get the sequel finally get greenlit? People were worried. I was like, I wasn't ever worried, but I was like, why wasn't that greenlit before the movie came out?
Well, my thing is like I always thought the reason behind them waiting was just because maybe they didn't want, they did Matt Reeves want to do it again. I know he came out and saying like, yeah, I'd love to do more, but it's like, okay, but is he like serious or is he just kind of saying that? Because some people are like, I'd love to return as this character. I'm like, okay, but like, are you actively striving towards that? Or are you
Right.
just saying,
Oh
if
yeah,
the
James
opportunity
Marsden. You
presented-
absolutely. I'm sure you would love to return as Cyclops. You're not going to. They're not going to call
right?
you
Like,
Cyclops. Well, yeah, you'd love to be a
like
part of this
that's my
great
thing.
universe.
It's
Like,
like,
everyone loves to be hired for something. It's like, yeah.
well, that's what I'm saying. It's like it would be hard. Like, there's a difference between like I would turn this down if it was presented, and like I'm actively trying to be this. So I think I personally think that's kind of what it is. Because yeah, like you said, there's no reason. Even if this movie bombed, they were probably gonna make another one anyway because it's
Right.
Batman.
Like
You know.
even like Batman Begins only made I think it was like 300 million, which broke even. But for a Christopher Nolan movie, a Batman
Yeah, that's
Christopher
not a
Nolan
lot of
movie is
money.
not great. Granted, that was in 2005 when Catwoman was the year prior. You know, that was
Well,
not
Spider-Man was going strong, but
Spider-Man
yeah.
was going strong. The X-Men movies were actually still good.
Yeah.
But Daredevil was bad. Blade 3 was bad. It was just boop.
Fantastic Four.
Same summer, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Didn't help, I'm
yeah.
sure.
So yeah, superhero movies were very hit or miss. So I'm not surprised at like this new, which I also want to point out, kind of tangent, but I always found it very funny that Batman Begins had this very distinct style and atmosphere to the characters and to Gotham as a whole. Like I really liked that Batman outfit. I thought it made him look, like more gargoyle-y than his future like armored outfits. Gotham had monorails and had like this more gothic aesthetic to it than. And then in Dark Knight, it's Chicago. It's just a city. I'm saying I don't. It's just weird. Like it's
It was different, and I think a lot of people like if you watch them back to back, it's a lot more noticeable than if you actually take some time in between. But like yeah, it is different, and it kind of works. I like as far as the suit design, I like how it was explained. At least it wasn't just like, oh, you just have a new suit. I like how it was like, well, you're gonna need this because this keeps happening. This makes it easier, et cetera, et cetera.
yes.
So like I like when stuff. I don't know. I like being on the inside for the cool stuff.
Yeah, I
But
guess you could kind of argue you could watch The Dark Knight just by itself and you wouldn't really miss anything.
no, you would. I mean, the only thing you would miss is like, oh, not much really. I mean, as long as you understand who Batman is, you wouldn't really miss much. Because I mean, even though Rachel is, I mean, obviously she's recasted as Maggie. You don't know, but from Maggie, but it's also like you kind of it doesn't really like you. All you need to know is she has a past history with Bruce. They grew up together. Like that's pretty much it. You can kind of just
Yeah.
roll with that. Like you just Harvey's newly introduced. Commissioner Gordon, still Commissioner Gordon. Like, you know what I mean? Everything's pretty much set.
Yeah, Scarecrow is in it for half a second at the very beginning, but he's just he's Scarecrow. Like he's just another villain.
That could have been anybody.
Yeah. And even like if you just watch The Dark Knight, like if you watch The Dark Knight Rises, you might be confused when Liam Neeson shows up and is like, "Who is that supposed to be?" That's supposed to be important if you hadn't seen Batman Begins. But if you just watch The Dark Knight, you don't really need the other two.
No, no, and a lot of people do just watch The Dark Knight because they've heard so good
It
things
is,
about it.
yeah, it is. It is definitely easily the best of that trilogy. That's not
Oh,
even
for sure.
like
No
you know,
question.
as much as I like certain things about Batman Begins a little better, it's Dark Knight. Come on.
Yeah, no, it's not even close. I mean, no, not even close. But yeah, it's interesting because a lot of times when you look at trilogies, you can kind of point at certain points, and you're kind of like, you don't really, you don't really need this, do you? You know what I mean? It's like,
Mhm.
like obviously with hindsight and everything, but it's like, it's kind of just like, that's not
Yeah,
really that great. Like
like
Batman Begins is fine, but it definitely has some things that are like, oh man, this is gonna be important. Never seen it again, but it's fine.
uh, yeah, like I watched Winter Soldier without ever watching the first Captain America
Yep.
movie. Through context clues, I got it. I got it.
Yeah, I mean, because it's like the whole Bucky thing, like especially with how the like reveal is like shot and how it is played. It's like you don't really need to watch the first one to get that, like at
Mhm.
all. Like you can go get immediately. Oh wow, he's really that's a guy he used to know. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just it's like the whole Jason Todd thing. It's kind of like whoa, like what? You were supposed to be dead, but here you are, alive and beating me up. What is this?
Mhm.
Like, so
Right. Um, but yeah, I obviously super excited for October 2025. So far away.
it is, but if you think about all the other stuff that we're also going to have on the way there, it's not so bad.
That year is going to be stacked. Like, not even including
Exactly.
some of the other stuff I'm going to be talking about. Fantastic Four is the beginning of that year. Kang Dynasty is also that year. Rumors of a Spider-Man movie coming out that summer. It's like, that is
Why not?
crazy.
Just add them on.
I think there's one other Marvel movie coming out, probably Shang-Chi 2 or Eternals 2 or some other, like, sequel movie coming out that year. Like, that's crazy. Along with the Batman and other stuff, it gets, yeah. But speaking on that, the only other movie that we have a concrete release date on is Superman Legacy, coming July 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And James Gunn made it very, very clear that he loves Superman because of his he loves the values and what he represents as a symbol of hope for the world. Like, that is like that yeah.
He's staring at my Superman poster in my room, being so proud.
And today he posted a poll on Twitter, kind of jokingly. It's like, Trunks or no Trunks, and most of the people voted for Trunks.
Trunks, yes.
And he was like, the
Bring
poll doesn't matter, but I just want to see what you people think. He's going to have Trunks. Yes.
No, I mean, I understand the whole Trunks thing was obviously a comic's choice and isn't really practical, but I want Superman specifically to have them because it seems like the sort of thing your mom would do if she made a costume.
Yes. That there are so many reasons why the Trunks are so important to the character. One, I've always found them especially funny on a character like Batman, where it looks silly on the super serious character, but also the reason why they work on Superman is because like, if you're just like looking at him, the way Henry Cavill's suited, which is a good suit outside of the that area, it's just a lot of blue. There's nothing breaking it up. It's just like a big onesie.
Yeah.
And the Trunks, at least, if there was like either like a yellow or red belt or something else down there that could break up the color, it would just look more visually interesting. Whereas with Batman, I feel he's come around to work a lot better as just a full-on dark silhouette.
Yeah.
Superman, you need like that iconic, just like, look at this guy. Oh, that is Superman. If he doesn't have the red trunks, it's like, oh, that's just some blue alien. Like, he's not
Well,
as
right, because
iconic.
Right. I mean, it takes away a lot of the red because, like, he doesn't have gloves, so it's just the boots and the cape and and part of the symbols. But it's like with the trunks, you've got the red. You also got the yellow belt, which works with the symbol more. So it's all the primary colors. It's not
Hmm.
just like I know it's big blue, but it's like there's more to it than that. It's like the simplicity kind of brings it back. And I don't know. It just seems there's an innocence to it, if that makes sense. It just
Yes.
kind of feels like you know what I mean? Like a super serious crazy guy's not gonna wear trunks. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he just seems like a cool guy if he just has that on. It's just
Uh-huh.
like, why are you wearing that? You're like, I think they look cool. You know what I mean? Whatever.
And it doesn't even have to be trunks. It could just be like a red aspects on the
Yeah, like
costume.
shorts or like whatever. Just
Yeah.
yeah, just like I always thought it'd be cool if they were kind of like shorts, almost like briefs, kind of. Like I think
Mm.
that would be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, and some comics have them be a little more baggy, so yeah, that would
Hmm.
work.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but just something.
Yeah, especially if it is established that this is the costume his mom made for him out of the stuff he was
Right.
came here on like
It
that.
feels very homemade.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Random, but
Yes.
also part of Superman's costume.
Hmm.
Do we symbol on the cape? Yes or no?
I've always found it so stupid. It has to be there. Like
It just feels right. I
it,
don't know.
that's okay. Let me kind of put that in perspective. I think on like when Superman is wearing it as a cape, it looks a little weird. But I think in context of that being the cloth that Superman was wrapped up in when he was like that makes sense. Like it was like that big symbol
Right?
on the front when he lands. Like that makes sense.
Right.
It's not necessary. It's not like my opinion is on the trunks. Where it's like if he doesn't have the trunks, he's just not really Superman to me. It just doesn't look right. I think he can look fine with or without it, but
It just kind of works. But yeah, and
yeah.
like you said, it kind of makes it look more like a blanket than a cape kind of thing. And it
Mm,
kind of, I don't know. I think it works. It almost has like a if lost, please return to Superman kind of
yeah,
vibe to it almost.
yeah. I don't know if they would do this, but I would adore a scene where whichever villain he's fighting, some big bruiser guy, whatever, like he's fighting some big villain, and like during the fight, he's getting beat, and the villain like rips the cape off and shreds it, and then he goes like, "Oh, you're done."
My love me back from
Right? Like
this.
this
Goes ape.
like that. Not only does that show a Superman's been holding back because he's a good person, but also
Yeah.
like he's he's a human with emotions. He loves his parents. Like just that. I feel like a scene like that should happen in like an early-ish Superman movie. Yeah.
I like that too. Yeah.
What do you think of the name Superman Legacy?
I think it's fine. I think it's again, I don't think the title's super important for the first one because one, it's Superman. No one's thinking about them like next to the title.
Right.
So and two, it's like I think legacy is a word that works either at the very beginning or more towards the end. So
Mm-hmm.
it kind of works in this context because obviously, legacy is about, your legacy, what you leave behind, etc. So this is kind of the
Yeah.
foundation not only of Superman in this universe, but the whole universe as a whole. So it's like, okay, what's going to be the starting point? What's the staple to kind of build this legacy
Mm-hmm.
off of? So I like the name.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like you said, I think like the name itself kind of makes me feel like it should have been for like either the character should be further on or should be like the second or third movie in the series. But like maybe it's the idea of like the legacy he will he's like thinking about like how he will be perceived in the future, like the legacy of his people on Krypton. Like I think all of that could come together to just be something very very
Mm-hmm.
powerful. Um, but yeah, that's it's also I feel like you could, at this point you could just get away with just calling it Superman. We haven't had a movie just called Superman since I think was it 1976
I
or
want to say
something like
70.
that.
I want to say 78, but yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Like it's been a
Hmm.
minute. So it's like I don't think anyone who went to the original is gonna be like, hey, like, like.
Uh,
Plus, it is Superman. It's not like there's been a million. There's been a bunch of Superman movies, Superman. So it's like, yeah, but
mm,
I don't know. I always like adding a little bit of a title change because I have this personal gripe sometimes when movies have the same name as older versions because
oh
once
yeah.
the new one comes out, you can't find anything from the older version.
hmm Like even
But
the Batman, like that cartoon from the early 2000s,
right,
can't find that ever again.
right, that's a perfect like that's an example of like, oh my gosh, now I can't find. You know what I
hmm
mean? Or like
Or like you're looking up for like you're looking up Tomb Raider. Which one? The 2013 one, the original one, the reboot on the GameCube. Like which one are you looking for? I think there was one on the GameCube or PS2 called Tomb Raider also, but like
probably
there's at
definitely.
least two
But
just called Tomb Raider.
yeah, I mean, and the thing, yeah, or like even Uncharted, or like it's just like the movie, yeah, Tom Holland, man. They're like, no, 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 no. Oh, you mean no, 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 no,
uh,
no. Like it just, but yeah, I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's a good enough name. I mean, again, it's Superman, so you don't have to do too much with it,
hmm.
and it also doesn't force, because sometimes when people take, names of certain stories, then it's like, okay, so they have to do this. We don't know what Superman Legacy is going to be. We don't know if this is going to be first time being Superman. We don't know if this is like a couple years in. I mean, we assume it's early on, but we don't really know anything.
Right.
So, I kind of like it that way. It's kind of just, this is Superman
Mm,
Legacy. We'll see where it goes. And
yeah.
I'm excited because it sounds like James Gunn's going to do them kind of the way he should have been done a while ago, which
hmm
is really exciting because I mean, I'm pretty sure we started this podcast on like, man, they're really doing Superman wrong. So
Back in
the fact that this
five
is
six years
potentially
ago, back in 2018, we were
right,
like, yeah, the DC universe is kind of on fire right now. Maybe they should
yeah,
start over.
yeah, and like here we are, and like again, Henry Cavill, great casting, great actor, but what was written or what was he was made to say didn't really work for Superman. So
hmm
it's like, okay, maybe this time we get it right.
Yeah,
Not
like
that it's
as much as I would love for this to be an opportunity for him to come back
redeem
and do it better,
himself.
I unfortunately that's just not what could happen.
No, but
No,
hey, you never know. They could always do. I mean, if they ever do like a Crisis on Infinite Earths or a multiverse or something, I mean, hey,
that is
how cool would
absolutely
that would be?
happening.
That's what I was
Give
like.
it
How
10
cool
years,
would
that'll
that
happen.
be? You know what I mean? He's just, come on. He's got like a different suit or something, or he could be. I mean, who knows? I mean,
Mm,
between what is it, Ultraman or Superman from a different universe,
hmm
Injustice Superman. There's so many other versions of Superman that could just like appear for no reason. It could
Yeah.
just be him. Like we've seen that happen at this point. Like
Yeah.
what I mean? Just show up. So
Yeah,
yeah,
because I know the that Injustice animated movie is not that great,
no.
but have you seen it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. Like it's
It
fine.
it doesn't do it nearly as well as the game or the comics
No.
do, but they were trying to fit a lot of story in about an hour 20. So
Yeah, but I did like how at the end when the Superman fought each other, it was Superman from the Injustice universe versus basically the oh no, I forgot his name. The one from the 70s. What's his name?
oh, Christopher Reeves.
Yes, like basically that Superman.
Yeah,
Like that costume, that hair, like I
pretty
like that.
much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and he used his super move from the game like
Mhm.
verbatim, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah, the few instances they did of that was fun,
Yeah,
but overall it was not
yeah,
as
it was. It could have been. They should have made like either like a short mini series or like a group of movies because
like
yeah, it wasn't.
Injustice One, Justice Two, like
Yeah,
the
because I
games.
mean, there's
Yeah,
a long story that goes with it,
yeah,
but you know,
yeah. I know they more so adapted the like prequel comic also, but yeah, it was. It should have been at least two movies. Like,
yeah,
but regardless, Superman Legacy coming July 2025. I think it's very smart to start your universe with a movie called Superman something.
yep,
Like as much, even though I personally don't like Man of Steel, like at all. I think it is super boring and not that engaging and not what I want out of a Superman movie. If it were called Superman the Man of Steel or Superman something, it would have made at least 100 more million than it did. Like it made like 680 something, maybe 660 something. It would have made at least
It would have
seven,
made
eight
more.
hundred because it's
Spell
Superman.
it out for people. They don't know.
Yeah.
You gotta spell it out for people.
Like the only reason, like the reason the Dark Knight does so well is because A, it's the Dark Knight, you know, an objectively very very good movie, but also it's a sequel. Like the first movie in the series was already called Batman something, and then
Right.
also Dark Knight is I think more like attached to Batman as opposed to Man of Steel. Like it's
I mean, that's debatable. I don't think anyone's gonna be like, I don't know who that. I mean, I feel like if you know the Dark Knight, you know the Man of Steel, or at least you should. Maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe I just want to talk to nerds. Who knows?
That's very possible.
I would. That's an interesting poll. I'm gonna ask not comic book people that.
But yeah, moving on to probably the one that I'm most interested in, Batman Brave and the Bold, which will be the introduction of the Bat family, primarily focusing on Bruce and Damian.
That's an interesting. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will be. It will be interesting for many reasons. One being, I'm very curious how they'll actually do Damian in this universe. Like, it's gonna take. He is very polarizing as a character. He
is.
Even now in the comics, he's kind of loosened up a little bit, but he's still kind of a brat. Like at what point in his story will that movie take place? Will he have been Robin for a couple of years? Is he just now did Bruce just now discover him? That also kind of ties into the next thing, like how old is Bruce gonna be? Because assuming Bruce and Talia met like early in his career, like at the earliest he's like 20 maybe, and Damian is at least 10 when he meets him. So Batman's like 35. I don't know, like something about Batman being a little older and Superman just starting out might be a little weird, but they could probably make it work.
I mean, they could probably make it work, and it also, depending on how they do this, with how they incorporate other Robins and things like that, it'll probably depend because, it's probably gonna be loose. They could follow the like DC animated universe and just have Dick Grayson and then just go immediately to Damian.
Hope not.
But, which I mean, I don't love that personally, but at the same time, I get it. But I mean, I hope they don't. I mean, we'll see how they do it. I'm not sure, but yeah. I mean, this has a lot of potential, though.
Oh yeah, like as much as I would love a Bat family movie, I don't think it's just something that you need to build towards. I don't think you need 9 movies. Be like, oh, in this movie he's Dick Grayson's Robin. This movie Tim Drake is Robin. This movie Red Hood comes in. Like, I don't think you need, in the 6th movie Stephanie Brown. Like, shut up. Like, you don't need all that.
We need a live action Signal movie. No, I'm just kidding.
No. No, I don't think you need to like build it up over 12 movies, but a Bat family movie I think could be in like James Gunn is a crazy enough man to allow that to happen, and like starting this franchise with Damian already being established, meaning most of the Bat family is already just kicking around somewhere.
That
probably
would be awesome.
Yeah, you just have Red Robin or Tim Drake, whatever moniker he goes by, just show up.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, you can have Cassandra
As long
Cain.
as they don't call him just Drake.
I hate that.
That was so weird. But yeah.
I think Red Wing he goes by sometimes, which is better.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I just think Red Robin's fine. Like, I think it's a little stupid, but then again, Robin's kind of stupid also. So, I mean, it works.
But yeah, like having at least 2 or 3 Batgirls already established. I think this is a decent enough place to start where you can kind of do whatever. Like most of his villains are already established. Like, I think it's good.
Because everybody knows Batman. We don't have to do this.
Yeah. Plus, it differentiates him a lot from the Matt Reeves movies where he's clearly just starting out. You know,
Right.
most of his villains have not come in yet. Like he doesn't even probably not even going to have a Robin. Whereas here he's going to have every Robin. Like I think that's a good
Oh,
place to
the
be.
Robins.
Yeah, that way even if you have two Batman movies in the same year, it's going to be very obvious which is not to, because I'm always under the whenever I imagine like how this is going to work, I always go with the assumption that the general population is very dumb. They will not understand that, you know, if the Batman Part 2 and, you know, Batman Brave of the Bold come out even within 6 months of each other, they'll be like, wait, didn't the Batman movie just come out? I think I saw that already. It's like, I think this will be able to differentiate them enough to not confuse the general public.
Agreed. Yeah, you want to make sure to kind of keep those things separate as much as you can. Because again, it's like, the Batman is doing well, so you don't want to mess with a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But also, you need a Batman for this universe, and that ain't it. So,
yeah. So, off to a very strong start. Got your Batman, you got your Superman. Good. They also got a Supergirl. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. Great title. I love that.
that is a good title. That is a good title. I will say, I'm a little like, okay, all right, that's kind of like, is there a date on that, or is that
No,
just kind of potentially?
Everything else is just stuff that they said will happen in Chapter 1 of their universe.
I feel like that's a lot for Chapter 1, though. Supergirl already? Like, personally, I feel that way, but
Until stated otherwise, I am going under the assumption that these movies aren't necessarily like on the same timeline or not like happen sequentially. It's like Supergirl could happen, in this universe will happen like 5 years after Superman Legacy, and we just haven't, and like and other stuff will like catch up to it. I think it could work.
okay.
Yeah, especially if it is called Woman of Tomorrow. I think having some kind of a time skip would make sense.
That's a good title. I do like that.
Yeah. Which also could potentially help the Superman universe kind of catch up to Batman's universe, where like if because you start off with Superman Legacy, and then 3 to 5 years later Supergirl stuff. Maybe Superman's in that movie, and then around there, Batman Brave and the Bold can happen around that same time. I think, and then you can kind of go from there. Assuming they are like trying to pair them up in one big timeline, like in the MCU.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, Supergirl, cool. Swamp Thing, a Swamp Thing horror movie is in the works. Yep. James Mangold, the same guy that directed the Aquaman movies, who previously directed a bunch of horror movies. I think the original Saw, a couple other horror stuff. Like he's in talk to do it.
A Swamp Thing horror movie would be awesome.
Mm-hmm. And there were rumors a couple of months back about a Constantine thing.
Yes.
If he wants to show up here, that works.
Would be great. Like a Justice League Dark, but like horror movie kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Amanda Waller's getting her own show. Sure, why not?
Sure.
She's great. Viola Davis is great.
I mean, is it going to? Do we know if it's going to be Viola Davis, or is that just?
Yeah, it's in the Peacemaker universe. Like it's taking place.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay.
Which I still need to watch Peacemaker, but I'll get around to it. This one I'm not going to believe until I see it, because a Green Lantern show has been pitched since 2017.
Yep.
Like I don't know. This is happening.
It's such a good idea. It just never happens.
Like a buddy cop procedural type thing with focusing on both John and Hal is such a good idea.
It's Men in Black with rings. Like, yeah, do it. Like, it would work.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't be exactly Men in Black, but it could have the same kind of thing to it. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can have Hal kind of be more established. John's a little more new, but it could be kind of be the opposite. John would probably be more by the book, and Hal's kind of more, it's how we follow the Guardians, but how we get things done
Mm-hmm.
is, it's a little gray area.
Yeah, like he's like the new rookie cop who's like, yeah, who feels like they should be done a certain way, and how he's been doing it for however long. He's like,
Right.
yeah, I'm good at this. I can do whatever.
Yeah, like we got this, bro.
Yeah,
Like, come on.
that's such a good idea. Yet I
Great
don't believe
idea.
it's gonna happen.
It's right there. That'd be great.
Yep. But like, so that's apparently happening. I want it to happen. I just they just again they've been pitching this around for years now, and it just hasn't ever been nailed down. But hopefully this is the time. Same thing with Booster Gold. That's also been kicked around for a while too, and now it's apparently actually happening. So Booster Gold, yeah, wouldn't be my
Sure.
first choice for my chapter one, but sure, whatever.
Yeah, definitely not. But I mean, hey, Booster Gold is one of those characters that if you do it right, can be great because again, nobody really knows about him, and there's a lot of potential there. So
Hmm. Yes. Yeah. Plus, lost my train of thought. Oh well. um, Next up, a show called Paradise Lost, which is a Themyscira focused show.
figured.
Cool. Yeah. Get Donna
Yeah,
Troy in
sure.
there. Get whoever else. Like, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. They
the
did.
Real Housewives of Paradise Islands.
Sure. They reconfirmed that Aquaman 3 is still happening. Uh, James Mangold said that he always pitched it as a trilogy, and James Gunn was like, "Yeah, do that." Uh,
Sure.
he James Gunn did specifically say that in his universe, he's not planning on having actors play multiple characters. Um, so I don't know exactly what Jason Momoa was freaking out about, in those talks with James Gunn about. Maybe it's like after the Aquaman trilogy is over, then he'll be able to play whoever.
Yeah.
But
Well, you could also argue that's not really the same universe, too.
y- yeah, because he did also make it clear that Elseworld stuff is gonna be a big deal. Like the Batman is in
Right.
Elseworld, so Aquaman might
See?
just be its own thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially if they're kind of, more or less canning the rest of the DCAU. It's kind of like, yeah, just like Aquaman's just doing because, well, why not? But
Right. Yeah, and he's also gone on record saying that he's very confident in the Flash. He thinks it's one of the greatest superhero movies he's ever
yeah,
seen.
that surprised me.
I, I sure. I mean, it can have a ridiculous premise and still be very good. And we've been wrong about DC movies before,
This is
several
true.
times actually. I don't know why we keep doubting it.
No, this one I have more reasons than just I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
this one's actually like,
Like I don't like Ezra Miller as Flash. I think they look wrong as the Flash. Like
and also there's
no red or yellow hair. You just the physique is wrong. I just don't like it. But
and there's been a ton of like off the screen issues with like, oh yeah, this movie's been canned like 3 times and gone through like 4 directors and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. Also, Flashpoint doesn't really work if you don't have a universe set up, and like, there's a lot of things
right.
that were kind of been like, yeah, okay, but if it's gonna happen, it might as well.
Hmm. Like at this point, I feel like if they are still if they are still committing to the Flashpoint idea, I almost feel like they should delay it again till it's after Aquaman and have this be like a send off thing for the DCU. Like, I don't know. It just feels a little weird. This movie's happening. Oh, and Aquaman 2 is happening after as well. Like, it just, I don't know. Like, I don't know. But if James Gunn believes in that movie, then we'll see. We still don't have a trailer for it, but maybe it'll surprise us. Yeah. There were a couple of other announcements. I didn't recognize the characters. There were two other big announcements I didn't like recognize necessarily. I'm sure we'll learn more about them as we get closer to the release. But as far as like those being the main movies in the first phase of their DC universe, what are your overall opinions? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, some of them are kind of random because I'm not gonna lie. When I saw Booster Gold and Swamp Thing, I was kind of like, huh? But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because again, that doesn't really feel like a stage one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you know what? Why not? If it's good, who cares? But again, it's one of those things that kind of like it's like this seems like a very rough like I'm just writing these ideas down and just going with it. This is very
Mm-hmm.
much likely to change, in my opinion. I think things will appear on this list. Some things might get moved down on this list. Other than like Superman, I think everything potentially can be moved around and changed. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like,
I'm not worried about too much.
yeah, I think the locks are 1,000% Superman, Batman stuff. I would even say Supergirl and Amanda Waller. Those are
Yeah.
absolutely happening. The the Paradise Lost show, I feel that could kind of either evolve or change into something different. Booster Gold might turn into Booster Gold and Blue Beetle thing. It might be just
That could be
you know
cool.
Green Lantern again. I don't know if it's gonna happen. Swamp Thing could become a Justice League Dark thing. It just there's plenty of time for the stuff to come out because we know the first instance of DCU stuff coming out will be July 2025. That's 2.5 years from now before it starts, and then probably you know 3 to 5 years before any of this other stuff really starts getting going. So there's plenty of time for them to add and you know or or potentially change stuff. But as far as just the overall list, it's not what I personally would have done if I were establishing a fresh DCU. But this stuff is interesting enough to me that I'm like, yeah, that all seems. This essentially seems like the kind of list that someone who is super passionate about DC Comics would come up with. It's not just like, oh yeah, I'll just make 7 movies and then make the Justice League. Like that's safe and would obviously work, but because that is so safe, I think it would honestly be kind of weird if James Gunn did that. Like he made the Guardians of the Galaxy. He's not here for safe stuff. Like, yeah, Swamp Thing, sure.
Why not?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm at least way more excited now than I've ever been in the past about DC stuff. So I consider that a win.
Yeah, this is the beginning of potentially something really great. And again, like we said, we have kind of been more or less thinking that we needed a reboot for a while now, and like years. So
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to be like yay, but like okay, I like this.
Yep. Well, speaking of new DC stuff, we finally got a new trailer for Shazam: Fury of the Gods, and I kind of feel like I've seen the whole movie already. It's one of those trailers.
Yeah, it did show a lot that probably didn't need to be seen, but again, this movie kind of feels like it's kind of just even though it's not a send off, it kind of because of everything else we kind of know it's a send
Mm,
off more or less. So it's kind of like why not just go all
right.
just go all in for it kind of.
Like I this trailer is like 30 seconds too long. First, and most importantly, I think the way this trailer ends is so awkward. Like it ends with him shouting Shazam and just charging at that giant monster. But then like it cuts to black, and it cuts back to him getting hit, going to the ground, and then flying back up, and then it ends. Like, why not just end with him about to collide? Like that's such a better ending shot of your trailer. And then he just kept going. It's like, okay, whatever.
I mean, maybe they wanted to add that, like, oh, this is a challenge, but like, I feel like that was kind of already implied.
Is it okay? Whatever.
I
Um,
don't know, man.
and also we saw in this trailer nearly every single Shazam family member getting their powers taken, like all of them. So
Mhm.
like, oh, I guess like that probably would happen, but just seeing it happen in probably the order they're going to happen in the movie, just and I feel like that was just too much
Anti.
information to give in the trailer.
Yeah, I'm kind of anticlimactic when it actually happens now because you're expecting it.
Right. Like obviously Shazam is going to catch Mary as she's falling. That's not going to like. I'm not scared of her falling.
She just becomes a puddle on the sidewalk.
Like
You're just like,
oh, where's that
oh
coming?
my god! When you when you thought it was a regular superhero movie, but you realize it's the boys.
uh, that would be a twist for sure. But yeah, I like the trailer itself. It looks like a very fun movie. I just wish I had seen all of it already, but I'm still probably gonna see it. At least I'm almost definitely gonna see it in theaters. I see pretty much every superhero movie aside of Morbius in theaters. So it's it could be fun. Yeah. Any other thoughts about the trailer before we move on?
Not really. Kind of just more or less ready for it.
Yeah. It's March something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's March. Hang on, I have a list. Hang on. It is March 17th.
Okay. A
I
month after Ant
organized my
Man.
list in order because it was hard to maneuver.
Yeah, exactly a month after Ant Man. So that's at least it's not like sandwiched in between two giant superhero things like it was last
Right.
time.
Again.
Yeah. Like I know
Oof.
Guardians will be big and Ant Man should be big, but it's not like,
Yep.
Avengers.
There's enough time in there to like kind of let that sit. Because again, even there's not really anything too big. I know like that Dungeons and Dragons movie is the end of March, but
Mm,
that's enough time for Shazam to get some
yeah.
screen
I
time.
think John Wick 3 is also somewhere in
4.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
when is am I,
March
that?
24th, maybe?
I'm not,
I
maybe
think it's the next weekend.
probably.
Which, I'm okay seeing multiple movies in one month.
I mean, I was going to.
Yeah.
It's like, were you not? Yeah, you're right. 24th.
Cool.
It's like, were you not going to see that? Also,
Like, if I'm only going to see one, I'm going to see John Wick. But, like, I see pretty much every superhero thing, so I guess I have to see both.
I mean, I feel it's like the one thing I like about this podcast. It makes me watch things that I wasn't going to watch
Right.
because it's like I feel obligated because you can't talk about something when it's coming out and then not watch it.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So it's kind of just like, come on, like you know what I mean? You can't talk. Like for example, like we were talking about like from the bat before the Batman came out. It was like, oh man, we're talking about this movie. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be bad. We don't know. It's like you can't not watch it. And then I'm glad I saw it. So it's
right.
like cool.
However, on that same breath, I have no remorse about not seeing Morbius. Like, that movie was
Oh
always
yeah, no,
going
that
to be
movie was
trash. I'm glad you saw it. You
yeah,
could talk
no, that
about it,
movie
but
was trash.
not.
I mean, I knew it was going to be bad, but I like that I was like, I like to confirm my suspicion. You
Mm,
know what I mean? Like, I feel justified watching it just so I could say, I thought this movie was going to be trash the whole time. It was, in fact, trash. You know what I mean? It wasn't like,
mm,
I'm not crazy.
right.
But
And I probably wouldn't have seen Black Adam if we weren't planning on talking about it, and I'm glad I saw it. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I hope
Good
Shazam
example.
was at least as good as Black Adam. Which, like, the
Probably.
bar isn't that high, but it's higher than you think it would be.
That's the thing. It's like I think Black Adam was all right, but it's like I think just because it was just a good time it came out,
Mm,
that it just kind of got more hype than it truly deserved. But it was still pretty. I think other movies we were disappointed with, and I think that made it better.
right, right. Um, Okay. So moving on. I know you obviously love the Spectacular Spider-Man show, correct?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
So my roommate and I, we've been watching it when it came to Netflix and then moved over to Disney Plus. We finally finished it today, and boy, is that show
Ooh,
good.
yes.
I will
Talk
say,
to it.
I will say, like just to start this off with a warning. If you're going to watch the show on Disney Plus, for some stupid reason, the last episode that is like episode 26 is
Hmm?
actually episode 17.
What?
When we were watching the show, um, the I think it was the episode where where like the master plan revealed himself to be Doctor Octopus in that episode. And in the very next episode, Venom was back, Harry was back, Harry and Gwen were dating, and just like
Yeah.
so much stuff passed, and it was like, oh, I guess okay, like I guess that happened. It's like okay, and then like we saw like we watched what is supposed to be the last episode, which is a great what should have been a great finale, and then today we watched something. It felt like Whiplash, where it's like this, like Peter and Liz are back together. He's seeing
Oh my
visions of Venom and Harry being goblins. This is weird.
no.
It's like, oh,
They
this is
have to. How do you do
I
that?
don't one random episode.
That's kind of like it's like it would be one thing if it was like the last two episodes are flipped or something, but it's like how is just episode 17 actually 26?
or
Like
or it's like X-Men, the X-Men cartoon, where literally every episode is out of order.
just poor.
So, like I
Like at
stopped
that
watching
point,
because
they're
I
just too
couldn't.
lazy to fix it because it's been like
Right.
that forever.
I
But
think there
like I
is.
don't.
I think there is a setting now to watch it in story order as opposed to released order, which would I don't know. There's something weird with that,
Isn't
but
there a Clone Wars thing where you can watch Clone Wars in
I
chronological
think
order?
so. Yeah, which
I need to find that because I was watching it and like I forgot how in season three the like Savage Press stuff happens and it
mm,
just disappears for like a season and a
right.
half, which is like because everyone was getting super into it. I was like, yeah, there's plenty more where this comes from. You don't even know, and it's
mm,
like,
not till season
oh, they're
4.
on Mortis. Oh, okay, like which is also good, but it's just like really random. It's like,
Right.
wow, that was really building
Yeah.
up to something.
I don't agree with Catch and Release being the very first episode story wise. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. How is Catch and Release before the episode that takes place on the same planet as the movie did? I feel like that obviously takes place right after the movie, but no, apparently Catch and Release takes place before the movie. That doesn't.
Well,
That's
isn't that the one? That's the one how they get to the planet, right?
I don't.
Because
Was
it's
it?
like I think it's the Christos blockade, which is
Oh,
like
was it? Okay.
because like obviously you have to get.
Huh.
That's the one with the stealth ship, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's
Okay.
the if I remember, we just saw it, so I remember that's the
Okay.
Christos
I don't
blockade.
know.
So
I
it's
just.
like that's getting to said planet first. Then there's the episode with the trader. That's the first episode on the
Mm.
planet. Then there's the movie. And then we just pick up after that with like
Okay.
episode 2 or whatever.
Okay, I just feel like the way Admiral Yularen talked about Admiral Trench, like I feel like he talked as if they'd been at war for a long time,
Right.
but it was just like a couple of days.
Right. Like, come on, we've been doing this for a while. Like a weekend, bro. It's not that serious. It's not that deep yet.
But
Like referencing things no one knows what you're talking about. We're just like, oh man, this guy's crazy. Immediately wins. Oh, that wasn't so bad.
but regardless,
Like,
episode 17 of Spectacular Spider-Man is still a fantastic episode. Like I'm glad we end. If like there are some episodes where like if that was the last one, I wouldn't be as hyped about. But like that was a very very solid episode of the show. It was just
no, it's
weird.
crazy.
Now, like the end of that episode was Flash digging up the symbiote. It's like, oh, that's where that came from. Like now I get it.
That's so random, though.
Mhm.
I hate that got ruined. But
Yeah, that's fine.
but other thoughts on the show?
But like, it's it's not surprising that they haven't topped the show yet because the show is very very good. But
Hmm.
what I've seen of other Spider-Man content, like the new Marvel Spider-Man show, which is very bad, the Ultimate Spider-Man show, which has potential but is very bad, like even the '90s show, which is fine but dated, like this show
It is dated, but it's
just
very good.
it just strikes such a perfect balance of every aspect of Spider-Man that I love. Like he's not just like a social outcast loser, but he's not like he's not like like the popular kid. He's like I feel right in the middle where Spider-Man should be. Like he has
He's a nerd. Like,
yeah, he's the sarcastic fun nerd.
yeah, like every school has one. It was probably you. Like, you know what I mean? It's probably us. Like, you know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know it was me. Like, I know
I was
because I had that friend group where we were all nerds, but because we were there so long, people still knew who we were.
I was that nerd who could just kind of like chameleon into any group, and everyone was like, "Yeah, he's cool."
Exactly.
He unfortunately doesn't have that, can't do that, but like, but it makes sense that girls would be into him because he is smart. He does it. Like if you're sarcastic, that's like half the work. It's like if you don't think super highly of yourself like Flash Thompson, like you're doing pretty good. like and like
Like,
and Gwen was such a good like a good,
great character.
I can't even say love it. Well, technically love interest, but
I
like
mean, yeah, I would say that. I
yeah.
mean, yeah,
I
definitely.
I really liked how they handled Mary Jane in the show, or like she wasn't
Yes.
like better than any
Like,
Mary.
less was so much more with her. It was great.
And like she was she was never in the show. It's so weird that she was never really pitched as a love interest for Spider-Man. Like he always was pining after Gwen, and even she knew that, and like she wasn't even like really like going after him. She was always like trying to be his wingman. That's just very good. Like their relationship is very good in that way. Um, every single villain is as good as that villain has ever been. I love Sandman. I love Rhino. Doc Ock is great. Like Goblin obviously is fantastic.
Dude. I always every version of the not every version like night. There's three versions of the Green Goblin that I love.
Mm.
I grew up with the '90s version. That is like one of my favorites. Obviously, Willem Dafoe's version is spectacular, and
Mm.
this version is great because they're all like it's that perfect mix of like menacing but also just casually menacing.
Mm.
Especially with this one, it's just kind of like he knows he's the most threatening thing in the room, but he's just kind of chill about it. It's
Mm.
almost like evil Spider-Man in this show because it's like
Yeah.
it's kind of the same. He's got jokes. He's like chill about it, but he's trying to like blow up a building. You know what I mean? But he's just kind of chill about it. He's just kind of like,
Yeah.
yeah, well, quip there thing. But it's also really done. It's done well too because it's just like the twist or like it's actually a pretty decent twist with like discovering identity because like you read
Mm.
comic books, you know how this is gonna end. But if
Right.
you didn't, you would have no freaking clue
Right.
because the
Like
characters have no clue.
uh-huh. And it was so like you even told me there was a twist, and like I knew even just watching the show I could obviously be like there's something going on here, but like by the end of it, like when Goblin showed up and Harry and Norman are both there, it's like either
Right?
one of you is a robot. Like come on, or
Right?
something. Like what is happening right now?
Like I remember watching the show and being like, "Oh, Harry's the Goblin." I'm like, "No, he's not. You know how this goes." Like it was just like you had to like take a step out of the show. Like you're not. You know what this goes.
He became
You know
Goblin
how this is.
in kind of in Spider-Man 3 and then Amazing Spider-Man 2. So
Well, yeah,
I
I
don't.
know, but it was just like. You know what? It's like you're second guessing everything because you're just
Mm,
like, oh man, Norman. Like it was covered so well, and like part of it wasn't even planned; it just worked out.
right,
So
that's
it's kind
so
of just
funny.
that part
Chameleon
was the
was
best.
there by happenstance. I was like, oh.
Yeah, that was like the best part. He's like, yeah, I was just, he's like, yeah, I was just going in, and imagine that the Green Goblin's got my alibi. I'm like, oh, cool. Like he
Uh-huh.
was like awesome. But yeah, it was really good. Also, I really loved how they did the symbiote in this version. I think that's
Mm,
my favorite version by
mm-hmm.
far, just because it didn't feel over the top. A lot of times, like, in the '90s show, it kind of felt out of nowhere, over the top. Tobey Maguire's version. Although we love the memes, the actual effects were definitely a
No.
little like much. But this version never felt like, oh man, he's not him. It felt like it was him. It was just stuff he just. It's like it was kind of like him if the intrusive thoughts kind of like took the reins. It was like he's probably thinking this, but he would never say this.
Right. And I really liked how Flash Thompson was the one who like who knocked him out of it. Like that's just their relationship through the show was just very good. Um, and like that's I think Flash Thompson is one of the most interesting Spider-Man characters. Like to the point where like yes he is a bully. Like he is like an antagonist for Peter, but at least on some level they still get each other. They're not friends, but like they don't really hate each other. They're just because there's that social hierarchy, they feel they can't, they're not
Yeah.
supposed to get along. But like when it comes down to it, like they can talk sense to each other. That's good.
Are, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't they like childhood friends or something like
Yes,
that?
yeah, they
Like,
literally live a
yeah.
block away from each other. It's
Right. So like they grew up friends, and then because of like school, sales struggle, Peter was a nerd, small, Flash is a big guy on the football team, etc. So just the laws of high school says we have to just not get along.
right. Like it was just so interesting watching the show progress and watching characters that become villains like I can't remember names now. Oh no, the guy who becomes Sandman, uh,
Oh yeah, Marco.
Marco. Yeah,
Flint Marco.
Marco, Rhino, Montana. Uh,
Yeah, I think that was a good one.
oh, Mysterio. I am terrible with names right now.
Jake Gyllenhaal. No, I'm just kidding.
Hmm, nope, not coming.
oh,
No, it's not.
no,
Mm-mm.
no,
No, hang on.
no. Oh, wait.
Nope. No,
Oh,
Mysterio
you're
is not coming.
sure?
I'm sure. Yep.
You're sure?
I'm. Yeah.
It's okay. I can't remember it either. I had it as. Oh my god! Now, yeah, we were looking for Quentin Beck.
Beck.
Quentin
Okay.
Beck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I had it in my head, and then as you were thinking of it, I forgot it too.
Like, that was me with Marco. It was like Flint. It's Flint something. What is that? Like, I don't know the first name. But like,
Marco.
yeah, like watching the chameleon like recruit these two people who like I recognize their names. Like I think one of them is Mysterio, and like just that was good.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I also like how he's like, I'm here to get my revenge. And Spider-Man, dead to right, is like, who are you? He's so. Because like when you think about like you were just somebody else's goon earlier, so it's like, bro, I don't know you.
uh,
Like, oh, I thought that was so funny because that's exactly how I would be in real life. I'm just like, bro, I don't know you.
right.
What do you mean your revenge? I've never met you. I feel like that's how Tony Stark thinks about in the MCU. Just like all these guys, like Tony Stark did this to me. Now I'm getting revenge. He's like, I've never seen that man in my life. Not just an amazing show that, frankly, came out of nowhere and like the 2010 Saturday morning cartoon. And I just remember watching as a kid. Was like, man, this is really good. And then I watched it again, like as an adult, and I was like, "This is still amazing."
Yeah, the action sequences are very good. Like there's just something about late 2000s, early 2010s action scenes and cartoons that just I don't know, like they're not too over the top, but they're not as like stilted and weird like like late 90s, like that Spider-Man show from the late 90s. They have a very nice mix of that like there's still that kind of newish animation jank to it, but it's still good. Like it's nostalgic, I guess is the best word for me. It's just it's good. Um, yeah, it's a very good Spider-Man show. Like like yeah, I obviously wish there were more seasons, but I think the way it ended, at least the way it should have ended for me, I think it ended on a good enough point where it's like yeah, the story could continue, but it more or less wrapped up everything that that this Peter, because every single villain was either in jail or defeated.
Yeah.
Um, Harry, him and Gwen, more or less, like they weren't together, but they like came to an understanding. Obviously, she didn't break up with Harry because his dad died. Um, but like they would have very soon.
Yeah, and I mean that's fair, but I mean that was
Yeah,
how do you expect
yeah.
that?
Like I legitimately don't even know what another season would do outside of like I don't know maybe Carnage stuff. Like I don't.
I mean, my thought was always okay. So obviously, Norman dies, and by dies I mean gets a dye job. But I mean,
Mhm.
and then, but I think I was expecting maybe like they kind of like start college more so
Yeah.
was kind of the next step. So kind of more intro, kind of, maybe they stay together. Maybe, a lot of people split up, go different their separate ways. And then like, Peter's still, he's still around. I think more things with Black Cat would probably happen more. I think
I mean,
probably.
she ended up like she ended the show not liking him because he kept her dad in jail.
Right.
But they could, yeah.
Well, I know, but I don't think that was just the end of their relation. I think they could have easily brought her back. Like, yeah, they probably wouldn't be on great terms starting out, but I'm sure they could have come to some understanding.
Mm.
Because his whole thing with I can never look the other way. You know what I mean, kind of thing. And then it's like, oh well, she's like, oh well, maybe this, whatever. But I think they could have made that work to a certain
Hmm.
extent. And also, just kind of like, I'm trying to think, maybe Carnage stuff, but also just I'm trying to think what else was around. They didn't introduce the Kingpin in any
They
capacity,
did
I don't
not.
believe. So
Um,
that could have also been a
yeah,
direction.
like because
Tombstone's whole thing.
Tombstone got taken down, the Master Planner was taken down.
Right.
What's his name? Silver Sable's dad. Like the
Yeah.
Salamonkey, whatever. Like like
Yeah.
all
Some,
three of the like main
yeah, the
crime bosses,
powerhouses.
and then also Goblin. Like just there is that power
Yeah.
vacuum
The
that
big man of crime.
yeah, someone bigger could take over. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So yeah, that leaves that Kingpin potentially open, and that brings a whole new can of worms
Mm.
potentially.
Yeah, you could have other superheroes pop in there.
Yeah, that'd be kind of
Daredevil,
cool. I
whoever.
mean, see if like Daredevil or somebody would show up. That'd be kind of cool.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I mean, there's all like it's a Spider-Man show. You have options. It's just kind of like where do you want to go with it?
Yeah, you can throw Miles in there.
That's what I was kind of thinking. I was like, at what point does that? Because I'm like, maybe they go. You know what I mean? Because it's like like who knows? He still lives with Aunt May, but like, obviously because him and Harry probably aren't, really after that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, but like he's still with Aunt May, Mary Jane's still across the street, so maybe that kind of starts up a little bit just because, it's Mary Jane. I don't know. There's a lot they could add with that. So
Hmm.
I'm interested to see. Also, I know the whole thing with like Gwen and all stuff. I know that they could have brought that back and maybe built up her. I mean, maybe. I mean, if it's still a kid show, you probably can't kill her. But you know
Yeah,
what I
that's the only that was like my one thing where it's like every single time Harry or even like Harry and or Goblin mentioned Gwen, it was like, oh, you don't do that, no.
mean. It's like, oh no, like I'm in danger.
Like they can't be in a relationship because that means she has to die. Like
Yeah,
yeah,
but if it's picked up by but if it's ever brought back, maybe they can
get away with
age it
it.
up a little bit
Yeah, it would be nice if they could do
for the
that, but
fans.
yeah.
They should. I don't know. Is it one of those things where it's impossible, or they just
So I mean, the reason why it didn't continue at all was because the show was produced, I believe, it was produced by Sony for Disney XD, but then when some something with the Spider-Man rights at around 2010, 2012-ish happened, and no, Disney bought Marvel in like I think 2011, 2012. And so then Disney wanted to make their own Spider-Man show
Right.
instead. So they made Ultimate Spider-Man, which is bad.
Right.
And then Sony had to cancel their show, which was good. And then the guys that made that show went on to make Young Justice, which was also good. So I guess it
Oh,
overall
that
worked
is
out. But
right.
like,
That's Greg Wiseman,
yeah,
right? Like,
yeah.
have you noticed that whenever there's good shows, it's like the same couple of people? Like how Dave Filoni, you look back and you're like, oh, he was on Avatar. And you're
Yep.
like, well, of course it's good.
Like
No
every single
wonder.
person that worked on Gravity Falls worked on like Chowder and Flapjack and SpongeBob. Like, these people have been
Yes!
around for a while. It's like,
People who are good at stuff just go to different projects and just make more good. Like, I'm convinced it's the same 5 people who just make everything quality. Because yeah, I noticed that when I started because I started looking at credits now, and it's like because I used to just look at voice actors, but now I'm like, wait, who wrote this episode?
yep.
Or like how Paul Dini, like Batman the animated series, Paul
Yep.
Dini wrote Clone Wars episodes.
I think I knew that. Yeah.
Dude, I like flipped the freak out. I was like,
Yep.
I was reading, I was like, oh yeah, score by Kevin Costner. Yeah.
Paul.
Paul D. Wait.
Do you remember
Stop!
which one?
Like, I stopped the Disney Plus loading the next episode. Like,
Uh-huh.
hold on.
Do you remember which one it was?
Um,
It's okay if not. I'll just remember.
it was a couple. It was more than one, but no, I don't. I'm not offhand, but I mean, there was a couple of them that Paul Dini was on, and I was like, "Yo, that's the Paul Dini." Like, bro. And I looked it up, and then the internet's like, "Yeah, you didn't know that?" And I'm like, "No."
I haven't thought about that man since 1997. Sorry.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
I'm like, bro. But
like,
then you but no, I mean that's so true. The same people are making the best episode, like the stuff. They're just making good stuff, and they just make it for other things. It's like, let's see, okay, so Holocron Heist.
oh,
So that's the one. That's the
the
like
Cad Bane one?
Cad. Yeah, I think that's the first Cad Bane
Oh,
episode.
that's cool.
So that's awesome. Voyage of Temptation. That's the one where they're flying the Duchess on the ship and there's those spider droids.
Yeah, okay.
That one's
That
all
was fine.
right. Let's see. Cloak of Darkness. That's the one with Luminara and Ventress, I believe.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's a pretty. I always like
Yeah.
that. That was one of my. That was like when I think of Friday night. That's one of the first ones I think of because that episode. I saw that episode so many times.
Right.
But yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I think those are the only ones. At least that's what it says on here. But you know what I mean. But it's like, bro, you know what I mean? Like Paul Dini, the guy who wrote all that DCAU stuff we love.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh yeah, you know this other thing you love? Yeah, that was me too.
Apparently, he's been busy writing like continuations, like in universe Batman animated series comic books. Past
I
couple of
have
years.
seen that. Yes.
That's neat. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they had like Red Hood and like Deathstroke added in, which is always
Cool.
a win.
Yeah.
I might just look up people and see what else they're in, and then just like watching this stuff. To be honest, because why not? I feel like such an adult whenever I like base stuff like that. I'm like, I'm gonna watch this not because I think the trailer's cool, but because someone I know is written it. Me watching another children's cartoon based on the recommendation of another children's cartoon he wrote. But
So yeah, I think every party who made the show would need to be on board making it. Which outside of contracts, there's no reason why they shouldn't be on board. Like I almost guarantee Greg Wiseman wants to do it. I was guaranteed Josh Keaton would love to voice
for
Spider-Man
sure. I
again.
mean, he's already doing it in Young Justice. Of course, he's down for it.
but the show we got is still very, very good. Like I said, they like the show ended in a good enough point where I'm satisfied with the story we got. So, and it is in my opinion, especially as far as Spider-Man shows go, but like Spider-Man content, it is top 3 favorite Spider-Man things out there. Like it is very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I'd say so. Because it's like,
What, Homecoming, No Way Home, Spider-Man 2, maybe. Like I
if we're
don't know.
saying all Spider-Man things ever, I won't give it that because I'll put the Spider-Man game at number 3
Okay.
probably.
Okay.
But yeah, top 5 for sure.
Mm. Yeah. So recommend watching it. Just make sure you watch episode 26 before episode 18.
Don't get the whole
So dumb.
story ruined, even though we totally just ruined it by talking about it. But
They didn't watch it. They just,
I think, yeah, I guess it didn't. Yeah, that'll be fine. That'll be fine.
yeah, it'll be fine. So, last topic I have. At the end of last episode, you brought up the question of who I believe would be on the Mount Rushmore of superheroes.
Oh yeah.
So, I'm going to pitch to you, who do
Okay.
you believe would be on the Mount Rushmore of supervillains?
Ooh, I like the. Okay.
And I don't
Is
really
this
have a
comic book
top four. I
villains?
just
Is this comic book villains or is this just villains, like movie
we'll
villains?
start with
Everybody.
comic villains. I think start with
Okay.
comic villains,
Okay. So you've got to have the Joker on
of
there,
course.
of course. I feel like Thanos,
Mm-hmm.
especially now, more lately, has earned more relevancy. So I think that's fair to put on there. Let's see, super villain Mount Rushmore. It's gotta be somebody who like you every. The thing is, it's like you don't want to do it just based on who's the most evil. You got to be like, even people who don't know comics know this person, kind of
Right.
thing. And that's where it gets a little difficult because you're like, "Ooh, dark side," but he's like, "Okay, but the
Yeah.
people that don't, you know what I mean? It's not
Uh,
like same. It's like, yes, dark side's that dude, but it's like it's not like the level. It's not about the level of evil. So
mm-hmm.
probably Lex Luthor. I would think. I think he's iconic enough as far as supervillains go.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, even that, I'm kind of like skeptical. Like,
It's
is that
weird. Like as far as the strength of individual villains, I think DC has Marvel beat. But as far as like
yeah,
iconic villains, weirdly enough, I think Marvel might have them. Like, Green
yeah.
Goblin. Especially in the more modern, with all he's been in
I'm
more
trying
movies.
like
Like, Doctor Doom is one of the best villains
that.
ever.
That's what I was thinking. But it's like, but like because Fantastic Four is kind of like as a culture is kind of like I know comic book fans understand it, but do the people get it? Because I'm
Right.
kind of like okay, but like Magneto, Doctor Doom, like I'm
Oh,
trying like
Magneto,
those are
yeah.
the two. You know what I mean? Like that's where I'm kind of. That's why I'm like
Magneto is
maybe
1000% on there. Like
that's
he's the
true, but
best
it's
part
like
of every X-Men movie.
well, that's what I like. I knew I wanted to like in my head it's kind of like okay so like for me I know I always lean more towards DC than Marvel
Mm.
personally, but I know that's not fair to the list, so it's like do I really want 3 Marvel villains, only 1 DC villain? But it's like, well, what other DC villain is off that level? And you're like, maybe Lex Luthor, but then I'm like, nah, probably not. Like,
No,
I mean,
yeah.
to be honest,
Like no,
like no,
I
like
love Vandal Savage. I love Cheetah. I love
no,
Bizarro. I
they're
love
not Mount
Bane,
Rushmores.
Clayface, King Shark. Like I love all of these villains, but
None of them
they're
are
not as iconic as Doctor
okay.
Doom, Green Goblin,
So
Doctor
let's
Octopus. Like you know,
All right, so let's run
Red
this back.
Skull.
Okay,
Even like I
so
don't know.
for sure Joker, for
Yes,
sure Thanos, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna put Magneto on there,
yes.
and then I want to say Doctor Doom, but I'm thinking because I just I don't want to miss something and then be like, oh, how did I not think of that? Because it's like because as much as Magneto is that villain, it's like
Mm-hmm.
Doctor Doom.
Make sure I'm not missing anybody. How is Carnage in the top four when I just type comic book villains? That's
No,
no.
he's not even a top 4 Spider-Man villain, like in terms of
Mm,
iconicness.
I agree.
I would say, yeah, no.
Loki?
See,
He's
Loki
not
is
really.
weird because Loki half the time is like not even a villain. He's kind of just mischief.
Yeah,
And also, I think because of Tom Hiddleston, people just like Loki. Like,
yeah.
I don't think it's Loki specifically. I think it's just that version of Loki.
Hmm.
versus there's multiple versions of the Joker. There's multiple versions of, you know, Magneto. There's multiple versions of, well, probably, well, I won't say multiple versions of Thanos, but I feel like Thanos as an idea is kind of gets the point across.
Right.
But yeah, okay. So yeah, probably Joker, Thanos, Magneto, and yeah, we'll go Doctor Doom, I think. Just because I think Doctor Doom's more a comic book one than like mainstream media, just because mainstream Doctor Doom and Fantastic Four in general has just been kind of But
But it like as let's not
as
even
far as
just
like
if you're just talking like from the comics, like if you're just comic
yes,
nerds are the ones who are pulled,
yes, if
Doctor
it's
Doom is
just
up
comic
there.
nerds, yes, I think that's a definitive list
Because I think
because
any given villain who can be both like
well,
their superhero villain and also a villain of the Avengers, like that is a villain.
well, yeah, exactly. Because it's like, you know, like if Doctor Doom is doing something, that's an everybody problem. You know what I mean? That's not just a Fantastic Four problem.
Right.
Now, Magneto, it's kind of an argument just because X Men stuff doesn't typically overlap as often
But he's
unless it's a
Magneto.
specific. But it's also Magneto, like, which is funny because, like, I think it's honestly, I think it's the helmet. I don't know what
No,
like the helmet
1000%.
is awesome. It's like it kind of has like what I call the Darth Vader effect. It kind of just you just look so evil. It does stuff. It just
Right.
points just
Like
because.
part of the reason why I don't really love Thanos' design in Infinity War is because he's not wearing the helmet.
Yeah, it's not wearing the helmet, but like I think Thanos just because in mainstream media the MCU is so big, the idea of Thanos is just understood. Like people who don't even read comics or know anything about comics understand. Oh, like
Yeah.
Thanos this whole deal. So it's like that's it's like I feel like that's like the mainstream thing. The Joker
Right.
needs no explanation, obviously,
Yeah.
and like it's just yeah. Yeah, I feel pretty good about that.
Like
I might probably be thinking about this later and being like, oh, because now I'm thinking about Darkseid because of kind of what you said about being like a everybody villain, but also being a kind of Superman villain. But it's also like,
but as far as I love Darkseid so much, I like him way more than Thanos personally. But I
oh, for
think
sure.
but as far as iconic comic book villains, Thanos just has more of a general presence than the Darkseid.
Yeah, yeah. Although, dude, I ain't gonna lie, man. I've always, I don't know. I think it's just because I watched more DC stuff growing up, but it's just like I've never been like, oh yeah, Darkseid Thanos. I'm like, bro, Darkseid would smack Thanos so hard.
I
like,
like you. First of
like,
all, it helps that Darkseid is technically more of an idea than he is an actual
which makes
presence.
no
He
sense
has like
because
some
so
like multi-dimensional like hive mind that exists. It's stupid, but like, but so even if Darkseid, even if Thanos could snap him out of reality, he wouldn't really. But also, anti-life equation, like,
well, it's kind of like because it's like they kind of have the same. Like I know the anti-life occasion is kind of it's a different thing than the whole Thanos stuff, but it's kind of I feel like if DC built up the anti-life equation the same way they built up the snap, it would kind of have the same effect, except kind of worse because the anti-life equation is bonkers.
yeah, but
But
like, let's assume even that the Mind Stone somehow makes it that Thanos can't be affected by the anti-life equation somehow. The Darkseid still smacks him. Like,
well, yeah,
he can just will himself to not die.
that's what I'm saying. Darkseid's literally like, I mean, he's like a like a celestial entity, but also not like
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
like
Like
even if
it's
we just
some
go
of the
stone
comic
by
stuff is so
stone,
stupid.
he can basically do everything the stones can do anyway. Like he has mind powers. He
Kind
can
of,
make portals. Like he can shoot lasers. Like he can
yeah.
teleport.
Because I
Like come
mean,
on.
yeah, it's just I don't know. I think I like him more personally, but I think as far as just the villain hierarchy for this case, I think it makes more sense to have Thanos. But I like that though.
Mm.
So it's like Joe. I kind of want to get like a I kind of want to like a drawing or something of that now,
Right.
like a Mount Rushmore with like the heroes and the villains, just
Mm,
because it just seems so like
yeah.
cool.
And, and drawn out, it does feel weird in my head to have two Marvel and two DC on the superhero, but not on the villain side. But
Right.
that's just how it is.
It just, but I guess that's just how it is. Yeah, like you said, it's how it is because it's like for the DC one, you can't really like you can't argue with it. It's kind of like I mean,
The
like
three are obvious, and the fourth one, I don't know,
the
but like,
fourth one's a little subjective, but like the three, it's like no question. Like you can't
right.
even, you know what I mean? Like I praised it, I was like, who's the fourth?
Hmm.
Like but like for this one, it's kind of like okay, there's like two for sure. Like everyone's gonna say Joker for sure, but
Yes.
like probably Thanos,
Hmm.
and like after that, it's like okay, are you a comic book guy? Are you more of a movie guy? It kind of just goes from there. So it's
Hmm.
kind of just like because it is what it is. But some people really, some people will be like, oh well, like what about I don't know, freaking Green Goblin. That's a big, you know what I mean? Like for me, the Green Goblin was always a big villain, but I'm not gonna put him on my Even I
Hmm.
know you can't put that on. Like if that was my personal one, just for me, probably.
Hmm.
But like no, not for everybody.
Yeah, because Green Goblin, he's definitely Spider Man's arch nemesis,
Mm-hmm.
but he's definitely not Avengers level threat. Like Magneto could be, Doctor Doom is, but Green Goblin is not
No,
Avengers level threat.
no, not at all. I mean, it's just. I mean, no, it's not. But it's just like, yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. Anything else you want to bring up or discuss before we sign off?
I don't know. I found this out today. Harley Quinn Valentine's Day special.
Yes, it is.
Like 2 weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I didn't know that was happening. I'm very excited that it is
Mm-hmm.
because I like that show a lot. So sure, more
Yeah.
things.
So even if we don't get
But
season 4 this year, we'll at least have some Harley Quinn stuff this year. So yeah,
yeah, but we could have both.
could have both.
Both is good.
Both is good. Both is good.
both. I love that. I saw that movie like last week. The movie is
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Is it on anything?
No, I had
No.
to rent it on Amazon Prime
Ah,
for
come on.
$3.99, but it was worth it. Like it was definitely worth it.
Okay.
Like me and a friend watched it because it was just like, yeah, it's time. But
Yeah, I watched the movie when I was like 10, 12. Like it was a while ago.
yeah, I remember watching it and thinking it was Prince of Egypt because it looks the same.
Mm,
It's in that like DreamWorks era, but it just
yeah.
like I was just like, this doesn't look the same.
The
But
DreamWorks
yeah,
era like where I feel like the DreamWorks was like actually a very strong competitor for like 2D movies to Disney, and then Shrek came out and was like, oh, we'll just do more of that forever. It's like, but you made
I mean,
some of the best 2D cartoon animated movies ever.
oh for
Prince of
sure.
Egypt is fantastic. Road to El Dorado was really good.
Egypt
Like,
is
what?
arguably the best studio. You know what I mean? Like
I agree.
you can argue that. Like that's not like a stat. Like that's not saying a
Like
lot.
that
Like
and Lion
people be
King
like,
are like top 10 movie of all time. Like it is fantastic.
well, yeah, no. I mean, but still, but again, Prince of Egypt's one of those movies that you can make an argument be like, no, this is also got to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
literally.
like, but like, yeah. But I mean, but again, you can't be like DreamWorks. Why'd you waste it? Because it's not like Shrek, Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon aren't also excellent
Megamind.
DreamWorks. And Megamind, that's one of my favorite movies ever. Like, I love that movie. It's a
Uh-huh.
problem, but like, you know what I mean? You know, it's bad when I bought it on DVD like a year ago.
Oh, Netflix one.
Because I couldn't find it. It's not. It wasn't anywhere. And
Uh,
I found. And then of course it was on Netflix. And I'm like, okay, cool. I have it twice. I don't care. It's worth it. Like, no, I love that. But that's what I'm saying. Like, DreamWorks knows what it was doing, and I think it was just their way of kind of like, just like we can be great too. Like, you don't have to be
yeah.
direct competition all the time because Disney, you're just gonna eventually, they're just gonna Disney.
Yeah, like they were going to lose eventually, so differentiating themselves is probably the right play,
Yeah.
but I don't know, like I think I
Like,
just want more 2D animated movies in general anyway. Like
yeah, agreed.
Oh well.
But, like some of them didn't do as good because I know like the like Sinbad or like the
Mm.
Spirit didn't do as well because they didn't have as much behind it. So it's like I think they kind of like, okay, if we keep fighting Disney, eventually we're gonna lose. So
Yeah.
let's branch. And of course, Disney kind of like low key started following them more or less.
Yeah, because after
So
Tarzan, Brother Bear, they kind of stopped doing 2D animation as well for a
yeah,
while.
they kind of
For
because
art.
like you think about like Up and stuff like that's more like 3D
I
kind
mean,
of.
Up is Pixar, but
Well, okay, I keep forgetting that. I'm sorry.
like,
It's hard in my head to differentiate because
mm.
it's the same but not.
It's Disney's Pixar. Like it's Disney Pixar's whatever. Because
That's kind
like,
of my thing. It's like,
and then you have like the
my
plane.
thing is,
Then you have the plane movies, which are Disney but not Pixar. The same people that made Cars, but it's not actually Pixar.
no, I
I
can't.
don't know.
My rule is if it's a possible Kingdom Hearts world, it's Disney. I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah.
can't do this whole Pixar, but not, like, if I can swing a Keyblade, it's a Disney. I don't care. Okay,
Like
because
two
we can't
keyblades
do
that your propeller spinning around.
that's. You know what? Honestly, is that a thing already? Probably not, but probably. I don't know why that sounded familiar. No, no,
There's no way there's a planes world in Kingdom Hearts.
probably,
That
man.
can't happen.
There's some wild stuff in those games. Right? Like I mean, we've already done the riding the Keyblade like a freaking space skateboard, so
Mm.
anything is possible.
Um, yeah. Anything else you want to bring up?
Nope, that's all I got.
Okay. So with that, we will see you all next time.
Take care, everybody.